Welcome
to episode 4 of the Marriage Comeback.
Yes, we're so excited to be here.
For you that do not know, we are the Henrys. My name is Dan.
And I'm Kelly.
And you may know us from our other social media platforms as the Oh.Henrys. Thank you so much for joining us. If this is your first time listening to this, I do recommend going back and listening to episodes 1, 2, and 3 to get a better idea of what we're discussing, what we're talking about.
Order's important, kind of.
In this podcast it is. In others it isn't, but in this podcast, order.
And maybe it won't be as much down the road, but like as of right now, going in order is kind of important.
I completely agree. We just want to really, at this point, thank all of you.
Yeah, this is our first recording since releasing. We recorded the first 3 episodes, and then we're really anxious about sending it off to the world. Kind of held our breath.
For sure. And I think it was positive all around. And we just want to thank you for your comments. We've had many DMs, many messages, text messages that we're going to get into and share in future episodes. But overall, we have shed many tears on, direct messages and just overall overwhelming love and support and knowing that what we are doing is helping others. There are a lot of people, unfortunately, in this situation and other stressful and tough marriage situations that this is hopefully helping and giving direction to marriages, across the country. And
for sure. And thank you guys for sharing. We've had a lot of people sharing it with people in their lives that they know need it. So we just appreciate that. And please continue to do so if you know anybody who might be able to benefit from this. So
yeah, the whole point of this podcast is to give tools and light and hope and things that you can use in your life to hopefully get through some stressful and painful times in your marriage. Kelly and I have gone through some stressful things in our marriage, and we just we have a great marriage, and we love each other so much, and we just want to share the tools that we've been able to use. And I think that's what we're going to talk about today, right?
Yes, we are.
All right. Episode 4, triggers. We're going to get into that a little bit, right?
Yeah, so we talked about in our previous episodes, like the first thing we needed to work on was our own selves. Before we could work on our marriage, we had to work on ourselves individually. And triggers is like a huge part about that.
Which I didn't know about.
Right? We didn't really know what a trigger was or that we had any and the bottom line is everybody has triggers.
About something.
Yes.
About something. It could be anything. It could be from...
what is a trigger?
Well, I'm glad that you ask. In mental health terms, a trigger first is something that affects your emotional state by causing extreme overwhelm or distress. And really a trigger can come in many forms, many ways, many things. And we were kind of talking about this the other day, and a trigger can be, it can vary from a smell, a song, a word.
It could be anything that brings up something, trauma from your past that you can feel physically, emotionally.
It can be from work. It can be from stress from work. It can be friends. It could be religion. Anything that can, open that up. And like I said, it can be anything that, and I had no idea.
Right.
I had no idea. And it's how you really deal with those triggers on how, decisions you make, how you can get through things. And
the biggest part is understanding what your triggers are and that you have them and how you naturally respond or react to that trigger. And a trigger is kind of your body's way of telling you that there is some unhealed stuff that needs to be worked on.
yeah, and when we dove into this, I didn't know I had triggers and how to deal with triggers. And Kelly had triggers from her past. And just I believe from what we've learned, like we mentioned, everybody has them. It's just a matter of kind of figuring that out.
And whether this is important too, like to work on yourself and figure this stuff out, whether your marriage is going to last or not, it's important for you to do this and figure it out, because whether you move on to your next it triggers and just like your unhealed and your trauma in your body affects your relationships.
Well, not just your marriage relationships,
right? Every relationship.
I mean, 7 years past what we've dealt with, I deal with triggers at work. I deal with triggers at work with friends, certain situations I'm in, certain scenarios I'm in, I'm in the same industry that I was before, just different company, but there are situations at work where I'm like, ooh, I dealt with that.
Yeah.
Previously, and I recognize it. So yeah, it's just not just marriage. It's learning,
and even like parenting. Like I can get triggered with my kids, and how does that? So like for me, the house and like cleaning, that's like my biggest trigger as a parent. Like I feel like I don't yell, but when I do, I always can pinpoint it back to that trigger of like somebody took food
where they weren't supposed
to and shoved it down the sides of the couch. You know what I mean? And I understand that as a parent now that I've learned about these triggers, to be like, okay, I know I need to tackle the kids' playroom today. I'm going to do it when they're at school so that I can like be zen and not lose my cool.
Yeah. And a lot of my triggers right now that I just briefly went over is an overwhelming day at work. It's, constant things that I've had to deal with, or finances or something like that. And where I recognize how my body is reacting to it. And now it's all about communication, and we're here in a little bit, we're going to discuss, how to kind of,
and get through them and cope with that trigger, right? Like, so in the addiction cycle, you can go and get triggered to want to do like a bad behavior
without knowing it.
Yes.
Without knowing it, which causes possibly poor choices. That,
like gaming, you could even just say gaming, for example. Like you've had a stressful day at work, you're really stressed out, you just want to go like numb yourself and game or something on the TV, or go binge Netflix and eat food. Like those are decisions and our behaviors, good choices or bad, that you make based on a trigger, based on how you're coping with that. So understanding that is like the first biggest part.
Couldn't say better. Of course, that's exactly it. After explaining, what a trigger is and how it can really affect your everyday, we'd like to get into a little bit of how and what we did when we learned about it and dealt with triggers. And with what happened 7 years ago, we really had to focus on Kelly's triggers.
Because if you're in my shoes, we talked about betrayal trauma. And so that is a traumatic event, right? Being betrayed, that's trauma that gives me triggers. Okay. So if you're on my side of this, you are feeling completely overwhelmed with your triggers. If you're on his side of it, you have to understand that your partner is consumed by triggers, and it is so hard, and you have to be able to walk with them and be there for them and communicate that with each other.
Okay. It sounds easier than than doing. But you're absolutely right. It is that, but we're telling our story because we know others are possibly in this situation, and this for me was it still is difficult when Kelly had or has.
I still do get triggered
Oh,
occasionally. Like, it still happens. We've healed a ton and worked through them, and they're fewer and farther in between, but there are times where it still comes up, even if out of nowhere, and I'll be like,
yeah, but I'm gonna rewind. I'm gonna rewind 6.5 years ago. They were daily,
Oh,
and for me, I wanted everything to be over. Like I'm trying everything. I'm trying to bring back trust, and I'm trying to work on trust, and I'm trying to work on me, and I'm trying to work on the family, and I'm trying to work on everything, and then boom,
or
Kelly has a trigger.
Yeah, it could be going really well, and we're like taking 3 steps forward, and a trigger pops up, you take a step back. So like that, it can seem like on your road to healing and recovery that you're not progressing as fast because these triggers can knock you back. But it's like 3 steps forward, 1 step back. 3, and so it's a slow, tedious kind of a process.
No, you're absolutely right, but I'm gonna let everybody know that it feels like it's 5 steps back.
Really?
For me, it feels like all this, and then she has her trigger, and it's like almost like me reliving what I had done. But really what it is we need to discuss what's happening. And I mean, just right before we turned the camera on, you were talking about how the discussion of it and getting through it.
Yeah, that's the most important thing. But what's interesting too is understanding, like, so for me, when I get triggered, I get freezing cold, and I get like this like nervous, like, and I'm feeling that even right now as we're talking about it, just like my anxiety. Like, I understand when I get anxiety, this is how my body physically reacts, is I get cold. And I also like to pick my face.
Yeah. Oh, I remember.
Like, I would just like go into, and I wouldn't even realize I'd be there. And I'd just be like in the bathroom. And I'm like, oh, I'm obviously triggered and feeling this way. So understanding that is really big. And then communicating that is hard.
Early on, we didn't. You kind of shut down, and I had to guess. And then I shut down. That was mine early on. Mine was shutting down. And that wasn't good for her because she needed me to.
I needed validation 120% all the time.
And mine was shutting down because I was like, I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to, I don't want to bring it up.
You don't want to say something that's going to trigger more. So my suggestion is, if you get triggered, understanding that emotion, like, okay, and everything can be a trigger, especially in our media, like music, TV shows, movies, like infidelity is everywhere across those, and it is so triggering. It could be a place, it could be a restaurant, it could be a name, it could be so many different things. A food, a smell, like you said, anything can trigger you. But it's really hard to navigate. So you don't want to be around your triggers if at all possible.
And you can't avoid them always.
But you can avoid them, and you have to work on them. And the more you work on your triggers and work on that healing, the less power those triggers are going to have on you. So that's like the biggest goal, is taking your power back over your triggers by working and healing yourself.
Yeah, good. I like that. And mine is I know when I get triggered and stuff on work or whatever, is deep breathing and chest pain, and I have to do breathing exercises, and you always walk me through breath and the breath exercises, and it's being there for each other. And now, fast forward 7 years later, it gets easier.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't go away,
Mm-hmm.
but it gets easier. I know Kelly just was triggered recently, and instead of me breaking down and shutting down and her not talking, it was actually a conversation.
Yes.
It was a conversation, still not a pleasant,
not a fun one. It's not
no.
It's a hard conversation, but being able to have those hard conversations, which I think is going to be the next episode or an episode down the road, is having those hard conversations. But, for me to be like, okay, that song was triggering to me. And there's a few songs we have like a do not play list almost.
No, you literally did it the other day. I was actually listening to a song with my daughter, and it was she loved it, and then it was in the truck, and Kelly got in, and she was just like, "This is one of those songs."
I just
I was like,
turned
"Oh,
it
yeah."
off. Like, we just don't do that. We just have that understanding, but I have to communicate with that to him so that he knows my triggers. If it's not fair to him if I don't tell him what my triggers are, he can't read my mind.
That's no fun. And that's what it was 7 years ago.
At the beginning.
Was a guessing game. I was wrong. I was wrong either way, right? But just knowing that she's going through the triggers now is more of a conversation. It's not shutting down. It's not getting upset. It's not bringing up more old wounds. It's okay. How are we going to work on this together so we can continue moving forward?
Yeah. So for example, I could be like, if I was having a hard day and he could tell or something, I would just be like, I'm feeling really triggered because of that show, or that came up, like that was a trigger for me. And literally, I think I listed like things that were triggers to me so that you could understand and try to just like avoid
navigate
you know what I mean?
those, yeah.
Even like a certain word or two. There was like a couple phrases that I was like, don't ever say that to me again.
Oh, yeah.
And and still to this day, they're on like we have like this not secret, but it's like this do not do list kind of, because you don't want to trigger me.
But I think what we're talking about is very, very important for healing and moving forward.
For sure.
If we didn't discuss this, and if we didn't learn each other's triggers or learn about triggers, I mean, Kelly would shut down. I would shut down, and it wouldn't go anywhere for days. Now it's, let's have a discussion. What's going on? What's happening? And this can be, and this isn't just a husband-wife thing. This is a communicate with your coworkers, your friends, your family, your, whatever it may be. Have that communication. So you're aware, they're aware, and you can work through it together. And the more you know about triggers, and the more that you know that maybe your family or friends have it or are going through it, the better you can help.
Yeah, for sure. The important thing to know when you're feeling triggered is that it's not going to last forever, that it will pass. That big rush of anxiety, that pit in your stomach you're feeling, that sickness, or however your body responds to a trigger, that's what we learned in therapy, that it's not going to last forever. And so they told us, just imagine yourself like standing, like you're wading in a river. And
everybody close your eyes right now. Everybody close your eyes and imagine you're standing in a river.
Are you going to make some like water noises? That was wind.
Oh yeah, my bad. No, just
but like it's going to come and it's going to touch your body and you're going to feel it, but it's also going to pass. Now, my interpretation of that is there are some times where I'm in a river at the beginning and these triggers are coming and I am like neck deep, like my head is up and I am just struggling. I'm like struggling for air, trying to make it through. Like sometimes the triggers are that strong. And then as you work through them and heal and grow, then maybe I'm sitting in the river and I have more control. I'm like waist deep. They're coming by, they're pretty strong, but I'm in control and I have the power. And then you're going to get to a point, which I feel like, where we are now is sometimes they come and I'm waiting like maybe ankle deep and a trigger will come and I feel it. Like they're never going to go away completely, but I have more power over my triggers because I've healed from them. And it comes and it passes and it's not as strong.
I like that. Like if you've ever, I mean, probably all of our listeners have been in a river at one point.
Drowning, just struggling.
And you can, in a river, I mean, you can.
like actual river?
Yeah. No. I'm talking about an actual, I'm talking about an actual river. Are we
talking about a metaphorical river or a real river?
No, we're still talking about the metaphor. I'm talking about like, I mean, when you're in a river and it's up to your neck, it's hard to move. Mm-hmm. It's hard to get through the day. It's hard to do another task. Mm-hmm. You're stuck. And I remember you in those times where you were literally in bed or the tub and you couldn't deal.
It literally shook me to my core and they would like knock me down for a whole day. There were days where it was like, I just have to, it's, when you hear like, just get through one day at a time, like I had to be like, get through 1 hour at a time. Like it was so like, okay, I can get to the next hour.
And compared to what you're saying now, if you're standing in a river, you walk, you can get through, get to the next one. There might be a slippery rock or a deep part where it may hit you or hurt you, but you take care of the kids. You go you go to work or whatever it may be. You get through it, so you can still move. So I love that.
Yeah, and so we just want you and hope that we can help you learn what your triggers are, how to cope with them, and take your power back. So what are things that we did or I did, when we felt triggered, or I guess in like the addiction cycle too, if somebody's feeling triggered, they would tell us to do like the dailies, the things. And it's, I had heard about self-care before and I didn't really understand what that meant until I was in my river, like how important that is. So self-care, it's a very important coping skill. It's not, I thought it was like a selfish thing. You know what I mean? But if I'm not taking care of mom, if I'm not taking care of me, how can I give to my kids? How can I give to my husband? How can I give to the rest of the family if my cup isn't full?
For sure.
So for me, it was like taking a bath was always good. If you're feeling triggered, like, getting outside, going on a walk, setting boundaries with your triggers. Like, obviously, if you're an alcoholic, you're not going to go into a bar. Like, that's the kind of stuff, like staying away from those things if you can. Calling your safe person. If you have somebody that you can talk to, if you're feeling triggered, to be able to make that phone call and just be like, hey, I'm having like a hard time right now. Yeah, I'm feeling triggered. You can either talk about it or not and just be like, I just need to talk. Like, how are you doing today? Like, I just need to get almost like distract myself. I guess, like when kids are like toddlers, you're like, hey, they're fighting over a toy. And you're like, here's this one.
Let's go back to the dailies that you were talking about. Those are really good. But at the same time, there were times we did it when we were both going through this and they weren't fun, but it was really good to discuss those. So let's dive a tiny bit more into dailies. Explain how we did our dailies.
Our dailies were like specific habits that we had to be disciplined at doing every day to help keep us in our best mental health state. So showering is a good one, but doing our spiritual stuff, like reading our scriptures, prayer and meditation, physical exercise, journaling. Those are like dailies, and dailies by we mean is like you literally have them printed out of what you need to do every day, and you like literally mark them off.
Yeah. It's just it's a habit. It's kind of like Kelly was saying. It's self-care. It's taking care of you. It's waking up knowing that you are going to take care of yourself and guide you through the day.
and they help you just manage your triggers more, but also your life more. Um, and in that discipline of doing your dailies or your habits, right? Like that is where true growth comes from. When you're disciplined and understanding that, I think too, when you're in your river, like I say, distraction, right? And that's good at sometimes, but sometimes you need to feel it. Like, why am I feeling this way? I am feeling my heart's racing, my hands are sweaty because I heard this song on the radio as I was driving home. And okay, so I need to like start to take some deep breaths. I need to understand. Maybe I need to go inside and journal when I get home. Maybe I need to call Dan and tell him I'm feeling this way. Sometimes, like my triggers, I wouldn't need to talk. Like as we were healing and going, like I wouldn't need to talk about it after time, after we were able to work through it, where I felt like I had the power over it, unless I feel like that trigger was like consistently like in my side.
And they can be.
Yeah.
And they can be. I mean, they can be. You know, sometimes they're quicker than others, and you just gotta, you know, continue to work with your partner or significant other to kind of work through it, and don't rush it.
Yeah. And understand, like feeling that, like I feel this way, but I know it's going to pass. I'm feeling very anxious right now and overwhelmed because of this day with the kids. Also understanding that when I'm overwhelmed and stressed and not doing my dailies and not taking care of myself, the chances of me getting triggered just like doubled.
Oh yeah.
Like if you come home and you say something that like normally wouldn't bug me, if I'm overstimulated and overwhelmed already, the chances of me getting triggered are like way more.
Absolutely. And triggers are real. And it definitely affects everybody. Throughout this process, you're going to hear us use this word throughout our podcast. You're going to hear this word come up over and over and over, because it's a daily thing that we work on. You know, there are many days that we don't address them, or, you know, we have our own coping, you know, ways.
Yeah.
And I have to now, when I kind of feel one coming on, I have a little music that I like to listen to, which we're going to bring up in just a second. But I listen to nice, relaxing, calm, cool music that helps me kind of relax, slows my heart rate down a little bit. But this is something that we're going to discuss over and over as we get you know, further along in these podcasts. And we just wanted to share our experiences with it, that it's real, it continues to happen. But the more you work on it together, they
get fewer and far in between. And so that, I hope, gives you some hope that they're not going to be there forever. So take your power back in your river. I'm going to put a playlist on our website. So finding music to listen to was so hard for me at the beginning, like so hard to listen to music. So I'm going to put 2 different playlists up. One's a faith-based one and one is not, but hopefully that can just help you if you're feeling triggered or overwhelmed, that you can find some music that will be good for you. And you can go to our website and subscribe. I'm thinking about maybe like doing a newsletter or a blog posting with stuff maybe once a week, once a month. I don't know. So if you want to go subscribe on our website,
Oh.Henrys.com.
And we're going to link our website in our descriptions, so you can always follow us there. And if you have any questions or you want to comment, please do so on our YouTube. I feel like that's the easiest that we can see it. Or Spotify has a Q&A.
There is a Q&A, and the YouTube, there are questions and comments, and we have been seeing some great ones that we will address and get into. We've had some great ones. So thank you so much. Please subscribe to website, YouTube, Spotify, everywhere that you can hear this, and please continue to share. We love you all. Thanks for listening, and we will be back next week.
Thank you.
Thank you.